Hello there, welcome in. You are on the Janelle Art channel, and I am Janelle. Let's just get everything quickly set here. Hi there to replay crew. It is New Year's Eve. It is the end of 2024. We got a whole fresh year starting tomorrow. I hope you've wrapped up all your projects. I hope you're excited about the projects you have planned in the coming year. You know there's always some shuffling and setting up here. Waiting for folks to make their way in here and get those notifications out. I've been working on a painting. Get that up in frame a little bit for you. Ooh, there go all my brushes. They won't do me any good if I drop them all on the floor, so I'll slide them off there. There we go, there's a pretty good look. Drop me a comment, tell me what you're going to be up to. We got all kinds of things planned, I'm sure. So I've stepped up to the cotton paper here, and my had advised me it was going to make a big difference. And holy moly, does it work differently. The paint is, it's not necessarily brighter, but there's a richness and a depth to this that is velvety and almost, I don't know, some of these rocks almost look like photographs. I'm really, I just keep stopping to just look at it and enjoy it and just kind of marvel at how much difference you get when you use a cotton watercolor paper instead of the pulp-based paper. So at this point I've got the larger things in, they're dried down, and I'm just starting to fill in those little medium-sized pebbles. And I'm working wet and wet. There it is. Again, I need a paintbrush for that. But I'm not wetting the entire paper. I'm just putting in a droplet of water and then, come on. These synthetic brushes don't hold water the way the hair brushes do. And while it's still a puddle, then I'm taking in some watercolor paint that I've got mixed up here on the side, and just dropping that in to the puddle of water. And you can see it just starts to diffuse and fill up that space. So that is letting the water and the paint do the work. And so those pigments will diffuse across the... So just barely touching the tip of that brush into the water, and as soon as it hits the water, just grabs it, does all kinds of magical things there. pushing that darker color out to the edges so that when this dries down, I will have a section in the top that's light. You can see it on this rock. There's a lightness, and that darkness settles down around the edge, and it just creates a shadow without having to come in and do a bunch of washes. So while it's wet, I can sort of work with it a bit. I know I just have a tendency to overwork it, but working wet and wet lets you take advantage of what the paint's properties are. So yeah, it looks a little blobby, but we'll give it a chance to dry down. And boy, oh. So I know tonight of all nights there are fireworks and chaos and just stuff going on and busyness, and I can find it a bit overstimulating myself. I don't know how you guys are with it, but neighborhood I live in, they like to celebrate the New Year's in all of the time zones. So at the top of the hour, they're out blowing off fireworks, and it riles up my cat, and they take it well past the. We go from West Coast U.S. I mean, I think they started, Greenwich Mean and work their way through because it's been going off all day long. And then, they'll celebrate with Alaska and they'll celebrate with Hawaii. And just about the time my poor nervous system gets calmed down a little bit, they go out for another round of that stuff. So people are just going to, they'll be celebrating us. It's just a day that happens. I'm going to bring in a little bit of a quinacridone color. I love the way they push the get a beautiful translucent pigment, and it also tends to push its way into a space. Just creates a little burst of color there. Yep, pushed it almost all the way to the other side here. Looks a bit like a muddy puddle there, doesn't it? But we give it a chance to dry down and all kinds of things are going to be revealed. Hello out there. Y'all are quiet tonight. So I decided to go with some turquoise accents on this. I really, just such a happy color, turquoise. And I have to remember that the turquoise tends to not be circular or smooth edged. It tends to have some straight edges. That's the way its natural fracture lines go. So if I don't pay attention, I end up painting in my favorite kind of oval shape, and then we end up with a bunch of things on the page that kind of look like eggs. To remember to try to keep them rock shaped. Starting to run short of room here. So instead of ovals, I'm trying to think trapezoids. That drop of water. Can't see my messy palette, but we'll swing it over so you can. Just got a blend of the Daniel Smith Primatech colors that are made from natural gemstones. Hi, Angel. Good to see you. So I'm working with the blue greens. I've got some hematite genuine, a little bit of zoisite. Hematite dries with this fairly large granulations in sort of a buff color. But when I get a nice strong color with it, it doesn't assert its gray blackness very much. It just adds this texture when it dries down that is a bit mysterious, and you probably couldn't paint it if you tried. So I think I want that to be a little bit more turquoisey. Using some magnesium green, maybe some Verona green earth. Little tiny touch of phthalo green. The Primatech colors are um, semi-precious gemstones. I don't think all of them are. The Minnesota pipestone is catlinite. Um, Piemontite is probably. I mean, it is a. It's from the Piedmont area of Italy, so it's earth. But if we get into things like amethyst, that's a semi-precious gemstone. Um, Apatite, tiger's eye, and this is just a few of them. Serpentine would just be considered. I don't know if we have gem quality serpentine, but mineral specimen there. Garnet can certainly be semi-precious gem quality. Jadeite. And zoisite is actually, when you get it in gem quality, it's a little more complex than that. But it becomes tanzanite, which is that beautiful clear, almost a lavender blue gemstone, and that occurs when lightning strikes zoisite, and it gets superheated and it transforms the stone into something that's gem quality. So, yeah, quite a few in that line are quite beautiful, and I've got Sleeping Beauty turquoise, genuine, lapis lazuli genuine, and rhodonite genuine on the way in the mail as we speak. So I can't wait to get my hands on those. The lapis lazuli looks like it's not quite like that deep blue, but that's the stone that's on the King Tut's golden, the death mask, the blue that goes in the stripes, alternating with gold. So lapis has been used as a pigment for thousands of years, and really traditional, beautiful, deep blue. So yeah, I love the questions. Thank you. I'm just sort of a nerd about it. It's been a special interest here for a while, and um, when I painted in the probably during when I was in school in the 70s and the 80s, I mean, we just had sort of basic paints, and now we've got companies that are really innovating the pigments. Schminke Horadam has some really wonderful super granular colors, and I gotta say, I'm just like, I want to collect all of the beautiful colors in the Daniel Smith Primatech line because they're pretty cool. And they're pretty accessible too. They're small 5 milliliter tubes, run under $10. So, I I also ordered one called Bloodstone. It's sort of a dark neutral purpley brown. Like the color itself is not super intense, but the way it mixed with other colors and the texture that it gave them really was got me very excited to get it on the palette and put it to use. So, oh, beading. Oh, that was, yeah. I I tend to cycle through my things that I'm working on. I'll get a bunch of ideas sort of worked up in my head, and then I get the materials out and start going to town on it. And then when I've sort of worked out the things, I rather than just camping out until I get another burst of creative ideas, I tend to move to another media for a while and then come back through. Beading was something I probably was doing that actively for about 7 years. Jewelry making, I mean, not strictly beading. I did some projects like bead weaving with the Japanese seed beads, but a lot of stringing projects using semi-precious beads and stones. And I also Oh no, haven't been wearing it for a while, but I do a little bit of silversmithing too. So, yeah, I'd love to hear about what kind of beading you're doing, or you like, or you want to learn. There's a spot. Spot's kind of right in the middle, and I'm just being a little tentative about it. But I think I'm just gonna dive in and let's see if we can. Let me just wedge a nice piece of turquoisey stuff. Oh, peyote. Yeah, that goes along with such lovely rhythm. Yeah, I was doing uh, some stuff with brick stitch, but I do like that sort of offset that you get with peyote and the way the beads kind of nestle in. Peyote stitch, I should be a little more clear about when I say doing peyote. Yeah, all right. I think I want to bring that. So a little bit of, I've gotten it down into a greeny turquoise. I want to bring it up into a little bit of a sky blue color here. All right. Here goes nothing. Yeah, that's nice. I did, I was working with polymer clay and making my own beads for a bit in there. And when I had the Millefiori canes left over, I was kind of looking for something to do with them. So I blew out some hen's eggs and covered the outside with slices of polymer clay. There's a short video on my channel that just shows a handful of those, and it's kind of a fun little egg art show there if you want to see more of that. So I've got a little zoisite here on the palette, which is kind of a gray-green and a bit gritty, so I'm just going to dot that in along the edges to give that shadow. Yeah, let me see if I can grab that egg real quick. Oh, that was what I just put my hand in that other. Damn it. You know the rule. I'm not gonna try not to have a total breakdown because I just messed that up. Because what's the rule? It's just paper. It's just paper. It's not the end of the world. Damn it. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Rats. Well, it does go better if you don't put the edge of your hand down in the wet paint. Okay, that's not too bad of a disaster. That's the thing about rocks, no one's ever going to look at this and go, well, that rock's not quite right, because rocks are all different. If you're painting a rose and you make a mistake, somebody can look at that and go, well, that doesn't really look like a rose, but it's hard to argue with rocks. Oh, I love a pasta machine when you're working with polymer clay, for sure. It's almost, especially if you've got any hand issues, and, oh, you do it too. Angel says, they go from one medium to the next and then back again. Now let me see if I can grab that peyote stitch covered egg, because that turned out kind of cool. Buddy, it's not time. I pretty much like anything that looks like a little jewel. And then if you want to throw in some bugle beads in there, got peyote stitch on the ends, and then oh, it's starting to the silver lining is starting to oxidize or do whatever it does, and it looks a little antique now, so I like that one even better. I do. Well, you know, this is what happens when you get, you know, I'm not a spring chicken, so I've had some time. So I always tell people, you know, if you just work away on it, you're gonna, you know, you'll go places with your art. Just keep, just keep at it. But I did those at the tail end of the beading phase. Like, you know, you kind of know you're done doing jewelry when you're like, okay, I've covered a couple of bottles in beads, and then I've covered some empty eggshells. It's like, all right, let's switch to something else for a while. Adam, Happy New Year to you too. It's really lovely to see you in here. It is certainly. It's been a tumultuous end to 2024, despite my best intentions. So, Jessica, hello. So glad you made a live. Yeah, so I figured, you know, I know there's some stuff that's been flying around, and I figured you guys were wise enough to know what you'd seen with your own eyes, and know what you've heard with your ears, and you know, you can also see the migration patterns, who comes in, who goes out, and how many people just keep going out. It kind of, you know, it could be better, but I think it'll settle out. I think that intelligence and common sense will prevail. So, but I'm glad to see you here, Adam. So. The Haight-Ashbury days. Don't tell me you hail from the foggy shores of the west. It was West Coast. Like trying to finish a thought while another one is just stacking up. I had been to San Francisco with trips with my family as a kid, but had a chance to go down there a couple of years ago and tour around, go to Glass Beach, drive the one from its inception out to the coast, and the 2.5 out of 10, really don't recommend. Very, very twisty. But looking out on that Mendocino coastline, it's really spectacular. Nice. Yeah, went down to Pacifica. Had a chance to see some of downtown San Francisco, but not too much. My friend grew up there, and he was like, yeah, I don't want to go down to Fisherman's Wharf. And I was like, I want to. And he was like, nah. was not into it, but the Palace of Fine Arts, I spent a good part of an afternoon just there kind of walking around looking at it, and went to the top of Mount Tam and looked out over the John Muir Wilderness and the Pacific Ocean, and I'm glad I got to do that. It's just some really great weather when we were down there, and pretty cool. It was, I will say it was like the weekend of Beta Breakers, and we were kind of down by Golden Gate Park, and that's not so fun. The after race pub crawl nonsense. Yeah. Yeah. So Jessica, you're counting down. Ready for another one. Yeah, so I I I came back. I came back on the train and took the, what is it, the Cascade Starlight past Mount Shasta, and so that's cool because you can just sit there and watch everything go past, and it kind of train heads go. It's not up the freeway necessarily, but goes a bit more through the wilder areas, and so that was beautiful. But I will confess that my favorite part of the trip was the Avenue of the Giants and the redwoods and just the giant trees, and the Dionysian Duncan dancers. Oh, that's pretty cool. Dan K, hello. Dan K is gonna be doing a live stream tomorrow, doing some elegant woodcraft over on his Elegant Woodcraft channel. So I do too. It's got to be better than 2024. 2024 was kind of a kick in the nuts, to be frank. And 2025 will at least be a fresh chance to, it's always nice to kind of clear stuff off. Tear that page right off that calendar and just let's move to the next one. All right. Boy, I really like the way that's drying down. That was just what I wanted to have happen right there. So I think I'm gonna, let's move on. Let's do a pebble sketch, shall we? Kind of take a minute, let this dry down. I'm trying not to rush this one. And I really like how it's coming along. Exactly, Adam. I think it'll take a minute to sort of think about how everything, I had set out some goals, and when you're sort of fighting Goliath, it can be hard to see when you make a little bit of progress, but I think we did make some progress against the big bad wolf that we were looking for, and I know I gave it what I could, and while I could. And I think any effort that's spent to counter high demand religions is, like, that's a worthwhile fight, if you can hold any ground at all, if you don't lose ground, I'm not sure what I won't know what was accomplished until I have some distance from it to look at it and see, because it's wins and losses, right? And it takes a minute before you see the final tally. Some things that look like wins can turn into things that feel like failures, but I just don't know. Can't tell from here. A little close to it. But you do need to you need to have a unified team when you're doing work like that. Somewhat unified, or at least not have people who are working at cross purposes. And it's sort of like government or a bureaucracy, right? You've just got to look at it big picture and see what it is. Exactly. When did he say that? How many years after the revolution did Zhao Enlai say? Uh, I love Adam. You always just adore it. When Zhao Enlai asked what he thought of the French Revolution, he said, "Too early to tell." But it was some time after. It wasn't like right. Yeah, right. Let's tuck into it. Oh, I'm going right from the center. Just do that. You said it in the 1950s. Yeah. Uh, Do you ever think about this, Adam? Do you ever wonder how long before everybody in the North American continent is going to be speaking some Chinese language, one sort or the other? just, I mean, there's days I look around and I just go, 50 years, man. 50 years, we're all going to. Anybody who's here is going to just be speaking in Chinese. They, their culture has a way of persisting and prevailing. Really? Always a surprise with you. I mean, I'm not surprised, but it's like it's always unfolding, and I'm like, yep, well, there's another side of it. For work or for just the sheer curiosity? I know there's a mustache joke there somewhere. So I got out the paintings that I've done in the last few months here. Just really started in on this series of paintings of rocks and the pebble sketches and drawings. And I had the first one that I did in June, and oh boy, I don't know. Maybe I'll do a well, shorts are 3 minutes now. I might be able to do it in a short and just do an art show that shows the inception, the first painting, which was so bad I literally cut it in 6 pieces, turned it over, and painted things on the other side. Um, to where we are, or where I am today with and the progress of it. And there's a decent body of work for this amount of time. So there's an artist code with participating in that. They have a building in a small town not too far from here, and for a very modest fee, you can get a booth in this big building that's right in the downtown of this small town. Next to a rock and crystal shop, I might add, which is, this is so convenient. But I think I might have enough pieces to actually show my work there, and maybe, it's always good to sell a piece or two and make some money to buy more art supplies as we do. I hadn't stopped to assess the work that I'd done, and I think that's a useful thing if you're working along, on anything. You don't have to be a fine artist to take a moment and just look at the progression, look at the development, and just say, that felt like a win. Could really see where my technique has gotten more refined, and I'm more able to get onto paper what's in my mind's eye. That's how I measure my success with it. When I was studying art in school, almost every class would include a critique period where students and an instructor would offer their critique of the work. Sometimes it was done, in that class period. Sometimes, we'd do it at the end of the semester, or, at various intervals. So I've had plenty of opportunity to have people look at my work and give me their feedback. This might be a nice way to just explain, having people say, well, you shoulda. That wasn't quite as successful as it could have been, or... I mean, sometimes positive things, but often what is termed constructive criticism. You're a student, you're trying to learn and improve, so the criticism is meant to push you a little bit. And it's not always great to have people telling you. Let me rephrase that. It doesn't always feel wonderful to have people tell you, oh, your composition sucks, or yeah, you missed an opportunity here, or... But the next time you go to your work, right, you're a little bit better. So the process overall is quite helpful, if uncomfortable at times. But here we are on YouTube, so we don't have to do that formal art education thing where we have to be brutally honest. It's okay, buddy. They're big noises. It's a big noise. I know, it's a big noise. That's all right. It's New Year's. Yeah. She's not super happy with the fireworks noises. Yeah. Yeah. Adam says, humane feedback delivery is an art in itself. Yep. You're not joking about that Maoist party, are you? uh, where does one go from a Maoist party? I mean, does that, like, just take that? You don't have to go home, but you gotta, but you gotta go from here. That wasn't criticism. You know, I fell in with the Federalists for a while, so I'm not. I'm not casting aspersions on anybody's group of friends. To be fair, they were pretty nice guys for the most part. The trouble is, it's hard to get everybody to see the positives of things that sometimes. And you can get a few in the mix, and they just got to go ruin all the fun of, being almost a libertarian leaning Republican. And insert John Birch insult here. And don't come for me in the comments. In my defense, I was hanging out with a bunch of Alaskans, and that's a whole different type of that's a whole different type of conservative thought. Adam says they had a fun bookstore. And with Cascade Green. Closer to the camera so I can see some of the detail of it here in a second. It's such an. Sorry about that. Has this granulation in here and sort of lichen colored green that it does remind me a lot of the Pacific Northwest. All right, I'm West Coast. It's not quite here, Jessica, but yeah, I think I got a couple more hours to go. That's okay. It's New Year's somewhere. So is it, did you just pass New Year's in your time zone, Jessica? And very happy, very prosperous New Year to you. So it's been a minute since I did these squares. I think this is just a wash of quinacridone, burnt scarlet, maybe. And I know it's mixed with zoisite. So there's a bit of a sort of a medium grain granulation in this just greenish gray color. Pretty cool. Well, sometimes the circles or the rocks are very obvious, and sometimes it is a choose your own outline kind of an adventure. And all right, who's got a timer going? Oh, excuse me. So sorry. Oh, I try to not cough. Couldn't catch that one in time. Got on the edge of the pen, gets a little sloppy there. So, do you guys like to make resolutions, or yeah, how do you mark a new year? I'm just curious about that. I think I made resolutions for quite a few years as a young person, and at some point I decided that instead of trying to not do stuff, because resolutions tend to be, oh, I'm gonna not eat as much junk food, or I'm going to not be a person who doesn't exercise. And it's quite challenging, right? To change your behavior or to stop doing something you're doing or to have some sort of self improvement plan. And I think, particularly with physical exercise, you can dive into it and then you make your body sore and it just becomes painful. Good for us, maybe, beneficial, but painful. And I'm pretty pain averse. So I found that, I'd make resolutions and, you're good most of the way through January, and the February rains hit, and then you're just going like, I don't want to go outside and walk, and I hurt, and so I switched over as I got older. I sort of adjusted myself, and I decided that what was going to be something that I could do long term was to learn something new or to start doing something new rather than to not do something. If that, it's just a different way of thinking about it. And so most years around the beginning of the year, I will pick up a new interest, and it might be something to read about, might be something to learn about. Last year it was activism in a particular area that I felt needed to be changed, and I felt motivated to try to accomplish some change because I had personal experience in being involved with a high demand religion, and managed to escape that, but like most people who are in it and get out, it'll leave a mark. It'll impact you. So what I have stacked up for this year, a couple of things. One of them is mono printing. I've done silk screens and etching and various forms of printmaking over the years. So I've bought a jelly plate and gonna experiment with making some mono prints. And sometimes I find that just as you go into a new phase, there's a couple of other projects or activities that'll sort of manifest. And you look up from what you're doing, and life has a way of sending some stuff your way. So Adam says his resolution is to remain delightfully the same. I endorse that. I really, just between you and I, all of you, all y'all, I did expect that the pebble sketches would have sort of become boring. I mean, that's just the easiest way to say, oh, let's go with something brighter. I think we've been doing some drab ones here. Find anything in here that's screamingly bright. I know I was thumbing through these the other day and went, boy, those are all kind of muted. It's not a bad thing, but sometimes it's nice to just have a really brilliant background to work on. It's just more fun to look at. What do you guys think? This will keep us busy for a minute or two. Let's do that. Yes, I'm just I kind of at this point I'm going like I've been rocking these rocks for more than 6 months, and I mean they're evolving, but I just just wonder. Just wonder how much longer. So do have a way of coming to the workbench one day and just going, nothing. It's all just sort of reached the end of it. Here's one of the sketches I did. So I mean we can see, starting out with something like this, and then it just sort of opens itself up and becomes a little less like a study and a little more like a work of art. And then something else will just come into my head, and I'll spend time exploring the next theme, and who knows. Adam, you sleep well. It was a pleasure ringing in the new year with you as well. Don't be a stranger in 2025. I mean, go ahead and be stranger. Stranger and stranger. It's all good in my book, but not a stranger. Be stranger, not a stranger. like these 4x8 drawings, but the paper, it gets so stiff and it just sort of rocks as I'm drawing. Good night, you. Thanks for coming in. So one of the most interesting years I had in that sort of do something new or learn something about the world was I had heard a story about children in refugee camps in Syria. And in the camps, there are water sources. And when they set up refugee camps, they, meaning international rescue organizations, there's some water sources. And then there are dwellings. And I hadn't realized that the dwellings can be 2 miles away from a water source. Now, in a refugee camp in a place like Syria, there aren't cars, there aren't bicycles even, there aren't animals. There are children. And at about age 8, children are strong enough to carry gallons of water from the water source, which, for most people is not, right outside the tent. It's 2 miles away. And in that culture, the children who are the water carriers for their family are the girls. So they get a chance to go to school up until the point where they are physically big enough to carry water. And then they get pulled out of school and they go to work. And so that means the girls don't really get much of an education. They get up to about 2nd grade, and the little boys stay in school. They learn to read, write. And I don't think there's any way I can really know what it's like to be an 8-year-old Syrian girl. I had a chance to go to law school. I mean, I had a chance certainly to, 12 years of primary school and Bachelor of Science degree, and those people who were born girls in Syria in a camp. I mean, that's, so many events that are just outside of their control, right? But I really wanted to have a deeper understanding of what circumstance would be like. I wanted to consider what it was like to live in a part of the world like I do in the Pacific Northwest of the United States where water is fairly plentiful. Certainly, I mean, we can turn on a tap and there it is. And we run that water right down the sink, brushing our teeth or washing dishes or... So I couldn't really carry my own water, but after thinking about it a bit, I realized I could divert my gray water and just stop sending that down the drain. So it's a boring plumbing story, but you can fairly easily divert your drain to put gray water into a bucket. And so for that entire year, I diverted gray water and I would carry it out and water the lawn with it or the plants or, kind of any task that was requiring water. Hi. Breezy Best, welcome in. Yeah, we got all kinds of rocky things going on in here. And at first, it's hard on your shoulders. It's hard on your... I would be like, oh, I can't even take a full 5-gallon bucket. It's a lot to carry. I knew at the time, what the burden was that the children were taking. The containers that were available to them and how many trips they had to make. And I was just making a trip that was really like 8 steps from the sink to out to the garden. So I don't think that I really had anything but just a negligible impact on the environment by doing that, but I learned a great lesson in empathy. I learned a little bit about loving kindness. I certainly had thoughts in my heart for that situation. And we still have refugees to this, still camps in Syria. And still a dire educational environment for people who are born female in many parts of the world. But I would recommend, if you hear a news story and you might think about ways that you can live something that you're learning about, build your connection with the world around you. And I'm pretty sure the source of that story would have been something on National Public Radio at the time. I lived close enough to a radio station to just turn that on and have it going in the background. And there's more to it, but that's just basically the gist of it, was just to sort of explore what it's like to be a human in a different environment. You're in Alaska. Breezy Beth says, Happy New Year, even though it's only 8:30 p.m. here in Alaska. Yeah. I miss it. I had a chance to live up there for a few years in the Anchorage area. Certainly miss the people. Miss the land. Do not miss having a moose on my front porch when I'm trying to go to work. Those things. I lived kind of close to Northern Lights Boulevard, and you'd just be trying to get to the grocery store. There'd be a damn moose in the middle of the road. Just please don't walk towards my car, please. And just how is it they always go like diagonally through an intersection, or just those darn things. Sure, I really concluded though this story about the water, because there's not a conclusion about it, but um, I eventually reconnected the drain and then was much more mindful about the way that I was using the resources. And the yard looked pretty good that year. It probably got more water than it did because my yard is xeriscaped. It's not actually planted with xeriscaping plants. It's just what's there. It gets water when it rains, and in the summer it fends for itself. So a few things have been removed, and there's quite a few shrubs that don't really grow too much. They're come about August or September, the HOA is just writing me nasty, nasty notes. You need to water your lawn. Well, make me. Oh, every time they do that, I send them the letter from July that says, we need to conserve water, so if your address ends in an even number, you can water your lawn on the 2 days a week that are just a whole complicated system. Which is, yeah, don't tell me my lawn's looking crappy when, 4 weeks ago you were telling me don't put water on it. They love me here. Nothing like a retired lawyer to really just have fine-tuned the art of malicious compliance. Hmm. Breezy says, Breezy Beth says, I'm always so thirsty when I go to the lower 48. I know you used to land in Washington. A lot of people travel from Alaska to Seattle and then from Seattle out to other places. Used to come into Seattle and it would just look lush and green. And last few times it just, you come in and just looks like it's drying up. Kind of wild to me that in my lifetime that it has changed so much. And I'm in Oregon now, so driving up that I-5 corridor through, it just used to feel like you were driving through a forest, and quite different now. We've been testing out this Accurate brand technical pen. I am starting to feel like we might be. The ink is just starting to feel like the pen's about emptied out. Buddy. Yep. All right, hold the fort for 20 seconds. I'm gonna go bribe the cat with the cat tax. It's really not time, but I know you're upset because she's upset. There's a lot of loud fireworks, so I'm just gonna go ahead and bribe her. Buddy, it is not even close. Not even close. Is that part of our fun around here is how long I can... You guys should probably be out there taking bets on how long before I cave in and let that cat have an extra bonus meal. Ah, so yeah, Breezy lived in western Idaho in the Boise area before moving up to Alaska, so yeah. Western Idaho has been deserty though. Well, I think a lot of people who aren't familiar with the Pacific Northwest would be really surprised to know that Oregon, uh, probably more of the state than is green, is high desert with cactus, native cactus, and juniper and other slow growing kinds of sage and so I have been through Idaho on on a couple of trips, but one on the way to Yellowstone, where you pass through the Shoshone National Forest. And I can remember that sign just being perched on, like, the only wood you could see was the wood that the Shoshone National Forest sign was made of. And I can remember looking at that sign and then looking around and thinking the Department of the Interior had felt sorry for Idaho for not having trees there, so they just went, well, let's just give them a national forest, because you look out and it's miles of, like, craters in the moon, right? It's just lava and very desolate. Not a tree in sight, but welcome to the national forest. I was pretty young then, so I think I really didn't appreciate the more subtle types of environments. Now there's just have an older eye that can see the small things. Hey, Hannah, Happy New Year to you, too. Yeah, they do. They do. We do have a reputation for being all the time, and it's part of that. You know, if you lived in Alaska, were you in on it? Don't tell the others, because there's a story. There's a shore story about Alaska, which is, oh, it's terribly, terribly cold, and it's brutally snowy, and oh, it's dark. It is dark all day, all night. I mean, you know, the whole state can't quite be as bad as the harshest days in Fairbanks, right? But don't tell yeah, they would just flock if they knew really how beautiful it was. And Oregon, yeah, that pen's done. We did it. That hung in there a long time. I'll grab another one here. Yeah, I think really good value on these bad boys. I think it was $15 and change for a box of 12. Immediately no on anything sticky. So, Breezy is saying that the Ontario area is so dry and always has been. Shoshone is definitely barren, but interesting still. Yeah, right? We explored some of that. There's lava tubes and sort of cave-like areas. Trying to keep the work area not directly underneath chat for you guys. All y'all. Oh, Fairbanks, golly. I remember going to a restaurant up in Fairbanks and stepped into the ladies' room, and there was a woman in there who was fixing her beehive hairdo. I'm not kidding, like full on 1964 era beehive, and she was wearing a polyester pantsuit where the tunic came down about halfway down her upper leg, and it had a belt that was made out of the same polyester material with a plastic buckle on the front. And this was in, I want to say 1994, 95. I mean, she would have been like somebody's mom in 74, like still okay stylish. And that was her going to town clothes. And she was friendly, lovely, warm, had a beautiful smile on her face and was very excited. And she said that she just kind of, like those kind of strange conversations you have with people you'll never see again and places you'll never visit again. And she said she was very excited because she and her husband were heading down to Anchorage, and they hadn't been out of Fairbanks in 20 years, which is not surprising. Fairbanks is kind of the biggest group city, and it's a good day's drive down to Anchorage. But it was like being in a time warp. And in, a place like that, there's no need to replace your fashion every year or every 5 years even. If it still serves you, you keep, you might keep your polyester pantsuit in service for 20 years. But just kind of, I just came back out of there and looked at my friend and just went, wow, this is kind of breaking my brain a little bit. And Oregon is probably 10 years behind fashion in some place like, say, New York or LA. We do the old, it's not worn out yet, what's the problem thing down here, but and Fairbanks is tons of hours of daylight, then grow strawberries the size of your fist in the summer, and you know, light all the time. Over 100 degrees Fahrenheit on the regular. And in the winter, not unusual for it to be 20 below zero. I think you got to be made of pretty tough stuff to live in Fairbanks. If you're there year round, for sure. I think most people don't think of Alaska as being 114 degrees, but anyway, to look and see what you guys. Please give me. Yeah. Alrighty, Breezy. Well, yeah. Congratulations on the granddaughter. Well, 6 weeks. It's probably one of a couple of things. Yeah. I'll, I will not fault you for going to spend time with that. Apparently, with the rocks, it's okay. Come back later. We'll draw more. It's okay. But I appreciate you coming in and spending some time. And I'm always grateful for anybody who'll get me, talking about and thinking about Alaska. It was just some of my fondest times were spent up there, and it's just an absolutely beautiful part of the world. So, Craft Zone, Hannah. How are you, girl? How's it going? What's arty? What's poppin'? And here's a question, because I know you're joining us from India. Quite a few people where I'm at mark the new year by lighting off fireworks, and I wonder if that's something that is happening where you are as well. So it's I'm gonna say 9:35 or 40 around here. and these folks did this last year too. I'm not sure, like they're not lighting them off at the top of the hour. They did this last year too. It was like, it wasn't 9:30, and I was just wondering, like, what is it? They seem to come out in about, they'll be back out in about another hour, and then at midnight here they'll blow off. They'll blow up stuff that makes me wonder if my windows are going to stay in the frames. I don't know where they get their fireworks from, but there's somebody down the street who's a pyrotechnician, and they set off stuff that just makes these big, like you're watching a fireworks show that's put on by professionals, and they're crazy loud and absolutely not legal. But I can't figure out why they go set off fireworks at like 25 to 35 after the hour and not like 5 till to 10 after, which would be like, yay, it's midnight in, it's midnight in the Midwest. So, um, not curious enough to go ask them what the hell's up with that 35 minutes off after the hour burst of fireworks, but just keeps me curious. Alrighty. Just checking on our time here. It looks like we've been rolling for about an hour and a half. So we'll probably be wrapping up here. I'm not going to keep rolling, until midnight. I just wanted to come on and have a little quiet spot, do a little bit of art for some chances to say happy New Year to my friends around the world and around the country. It's always nice to have a little bit of art. And don't know if I'd go so far as to say peaceful, but we do have a vibe around here usually. Try to keep it pretty. Not sure exactly what the word is. Sometimes it's pretty zen, sometimes it's pretty quiet. I do always come with the intention of keeping it inspiring. Maybe not fully mindful. I mean, if we were doing mindful, I'd be coaching you through breathing meditations or something along those lines. I figure you guys probably know about things like the Calm app, or there's a lot of narrated meditations that you can find. And I encourage you to do that. So I don't usually, say let's just take 3 minutes and concentrate on our breath coming in and going out, because I know that you can source that. There's just channels that are devoted to that. I'm more here to just remind you that a mindfulness practice is beneficial. I think I'm liking where that one's at pretty well. So here's the trick. If somebody out here can explain to me why this happens, about the time I say, well, we're coming to the interval where it's a good place to stop, usually that's when people start popping in and the chat just takes off. So we'll see if that happens today. But I think we're at a spot where we could stop. So we'll just do a little bit of an art show, and I'm just going to see if anybody pops in and pops their head up. But I thank everybody. We're getting really close to getting to 300 subscribers. So if anybody's out there and you like this and you haven't subscribed, I would really appreciate a subscription. And of course, the likes help and the comments help. And I think we just have a great time in chat here. It's a really cool bunch of people that are usually really kind and encouraging to one another. We like to talk about the various types of art that we do and just this and that, whatever comes up, just humaning our way through the wide, crazy world of YouTube and all things internet. So there's another look at this painting that is in progress and coming along. I felt like it was a little bit stuck on it, and then I know from working through the other ones that the way to move past it's just to move past. So I've been filling in the little turquoisey chunks in here, and I'll just keep putting in, working wet and wet. And I think on this one, most of the other ones I've done up till now, I've incorporated the pigment pen. So technically a mixed media piece, not strictly watercolor. Watercolor tends to be traditionally graphite plus watercolor. And including that pigment pen adds in another media, so it's not as like full-on mixed media as some people get to, but it technically is a mixed media piece. But on this painting I was endeavoring to get some nice shadows on the rocks, variously successful there, so that I could have them defined without having to bring in the pen to outline. So working into a wet droplet of water does tend to push the pigment to the edge and naturally does that, so that becomes a little more difficult in these tiny little tight spaces. So we'll see how I go with that. But if I can make this field of rocks and pebbles look like it's got enough contrast, I think that'll be an evolution in the way these are going, and we'll just see how it comes along. I don't really know where it's going to end up, but it's coming along. And then we had some pebble drawings today. Working into Cascade Green here. Boy, just really tickled by that color. And we finished up with this one. want to wish everybody a happy new year. I hope that you will think about some ways that you might want to expand your art practice. 2025, nice fresh year. Um, if you're well into a groove with your knitting or your art, whatever you've got going, I hope you'll be able to treat yourself to maybe a new tool or a new bit of art supply. And if you've taken a bit of a break, a creative hiatus, maybe you can get back in and try something new and have some art in your life. Take good care of yourself. Be kind. Be mindful. Seek some balance. Practice some equanimity. And I will see you soon.